Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of NROL-167 mission launch from West Coast, that is from the Pad Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We are awaiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 1:13 p.m. Eastern Time from Vandenberg Space Force Base for SpaceX launching NROL-167 mission following a southeast trajectory. This is NRO's fourth proliferated architecture launch within 5 months. The proliferated architecture is a constellation of different spy and relay satellites based on SpaceX Starshield. Today's mission is NROL-167 for National Reconnaissance Office, also referred to as the NRO. Also, it is a joint venture of SpaceX and Northrop Grumman, building the payload together. Today's flight carries a national security payload designed, built, and operated by National Reconnaissance Office. NROL missions provide critical information to more than 500,000 government users, including every member of the intelligence community, 24 domestic agencies, national military, lawmakers, and decision makers. Hello, my name is Deepto Mitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch. Before moving to the mission details, firstly, on behalf of AstroYonder's team, we express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for being a part of today's launch. We really appreciate you being here. A big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here today as we provide detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive stats and thorough insights. We are super excited bringing you the coverage of NROL-167 launch and the 100th launch of Falcon 9 of this year. This will be the 105th launch of this year for SpaceX. NROL-167 mission also marks the NRO's 72nd launch since public disclosure of launches, which began back in December 1996. This mission also marks the 8th NRO launch on a Falcon 9. Now let's get back to today's mission details. Firstly, let's have a look at the payload details for the NROL-16 mission. As mentioned before, today's mission is the NROL-167 for the National Reconnaissance Office, also referred to as the NRO. This will be the fourth operational launch of the NRO's new proliferated architecture. The first three proliferated architecture missions also took flight on Falcon 9, which were NROL-146, which occurred in May, followed by NROL-186 in June, and the most recent NROL-113 in September. Today, this is the fourth batch of NRO's new imaging satellite constellation built by SpaceX and Northrop Grumman. The satellites were built under a classified $1.8 billion contract awarded by the NRO in 2021 to SpaceX and Northrop Grumman. According to some sources, the satellites will have an inclination of around 70 degrees with low Earth orbit altitude being 310 kilometers. But this is not a officially confirmed detail. Part of the NROL-167 mission likely consists of several Starshield satellites, or perhaps all the satellites are Starshield, but we can't say for sure as there is limited disclosure about the payload details. But for some sources, which mention that 21 approx Starshield satellites are going to be launched today. Again, this has not been confirmed either by SpaceX, Northrop Grumman, or the National Reconnaissance Office. Further payload details for this mission is unknown due to the classified nature of the NRO. We don't know about how many satellites will launch on this NRO mission or the projected size of the new constellation. But the NRO's principal deputy director previously said 6 launches are projected for 2024 for the NRO's future proliferated architecture of small satellites. We don't have any images, unfortunately, of the payload as it's a classified mission launch, but on your screen you can see some declassified images of NROL-129 and the early SOS satellites. Also, we have an image for the NROL-111 payload IM. Today's flight carries national security payload designed, built, and operated by National Reconnaissance Office. NRL missions provide critical information to the intelligence community. The satellite delivers intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, which is acronymed as ISR. In military operations, ISR plays a critical role. It involves gathering information about enemy forces, battlefield conditions, and other relevant intelligence. ISR encompasses complex technologies, tools, and techniques used for surveillance and reconnaissance. Land, sea, air, and space platform all contribute to the ISR efforts in supporting operations. Now let's take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's NROL-167 mission launch. The booster with tail number 1063 supporting today's mission is quite a mature booster with 20 previous flights in its record, including missions like Sentinel-6 Michael Frelich, also known as Sentinel-6A, which was a radar altimeter satellite developed in partnership between several European and American organizations. The DART mission, Double Asteroid Redirection Test for NASA, a space mission aimed at testing a method of planetary defense against near-Earth objects with target asteroid dimorphos. Recently, the counterpart of this mission, the Hera mission, got launched. Next mission supported by today's booster was the Transporter 7 SpaceX rideshare mission, which launched 51 satellites for different customers. Iridium OneWeb launching 21 total satellites for both Iridium and Eutelsat OneWeb. This launch was for 5 spacecraft of Iridium Communications, which is a publicly traded American company providing worldwide voice and data satellite communications, and the 16 spacecraft of the Eutelsat OneWeb, which is a subsidiary of Eutelsat Group providing broadband satellite internet services in low Earth orbit. The next mission supported was the SDA-0B for Space Development Agency, a United States Space Force direct reporting unit. And the most recent supported mission was the NROL-113 mission for National Reconnaissance Office. Additionally, the booster also supported 14 Starlink missions. Now awaiting its 21st flight, just minutes away. It's been 49 days since the last supported mission by this booster. The last mission supported by today's booster was the NROL-113 from here at Vandenberg on 5th of September this year. Also, don't forget, SpaceX experienced its first in-flight failure of the Falcon 9 rocket since 2015 with this booster during Starlink 9-3 mission. Today is the second flight for this booster following that incident. It's worth mentioning that this booster had 19 of its 20 previous launches from here at Vandenberg itself, with only one launch from Cape Canaveral. Previously, the NROL-146 mission was supported by the booster with the tail number 1071 on its 16th flight. The NROL-186 mission was supported by the booster with tail number 1081 on its 8th flight. And the most recent, the NROL-113 mission was supported by today's supporting booster on its 20th flight. All the three flights were from Space Launch Complex 4 East. Would like to welcome here our moderators, both the moderators and Angry Bird and Pop Tripika. Thanks for joining you guys and being showing up on the chat, which you guys always do, and would like to encourage others to come here and to express their feelings and thoughts on the chat. And Pop Tripika, yes, this is the fourth for the proliferated architecture for the NRO. Today we will be having the launch. But yes, this is a secretive mission, so the details are not available so much. Now it's just a regular Falcon 9 pre-launch timeline for this mission, so won't be getting deep in that. Just a point I would like to mention here that as this is a Vandenberg flight, the strong back reclining process here at the Vandenberg differs from that from the Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Here at Vandenberg, we recline the strong back 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9, whereas at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center, we recline it about 1.5 degrees. So only that will be a difference in today's pre-launch timeline. Once again, just a reminder, SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg at 1:13 p.m. Eastern Time, 10:13 a.m. Pacific Time on Thursday, October 24th. Moving on, let's briefly step through the trajectory for today's mission. With the NROL-167 classified payload on board, the reconnaissance satellites, Falcon 9 will lift off from Space Launch Complex 4 East from Vandenberg Space Force Base for a somewhat southeasterly trajectory along the coast of Southern California, heading into its designated orbit indicated by that green line on your screen. Although the specific orbit, trajectory, and the inclination are not known for the classified nature of the NRO launch. The red line you see indicates where the Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later leaving California's coast. This is going to be a off-the-land landing, a drone ship landing using autonomous spaceport drone ship, named, of course, I Still Love You, here on the west coast. The first stage booster with tail number 1063 flying for its 21st time will be returning heading out to the drone ship for its landing. This will be the 106th landing on, of course, I Still Love You drone ship to date. The planned booster recovery is approximately 610 kilometers with estimated fairing recovery approximately 743 kilometers downrange. And the stage 2 debris re-entry will be in the South Pacific after the first orbit. SpaceX will utilize the recovery vessel Go Beyond to retrieve the fairing halves from the Pacific water. The two halves of the payload fairing will be recovered slightly farther downrange, approximately 133 kilometers from where the first stage lands on the drone ship after they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. You can see on your screen how a fairing recovery operation looks like. Although the recovery vessel shown on your screen is dug in the Atlantic, but today's recovery vessel, as mentioned before, is Go Beyond here in the Pacific. Meanwhile, the other recovery vessels, Bob, Doug, and Go Cosmos on the East Coast, are awaiting their next assignment. Now, just an update, Dragon recovery ship Megan is positioned in the Gulf of Mexico for the upcoming Crew 8's return. Well, yes, Bob Tripika, that both the clips for the new fairing separation, which SpaceX released, they are really cool, and they did get a like traction because for the view which they gave this time. Really, they were really cool, and hopefully we will be able to show them on our live streams. Now let's have a quick look through the launch timeline of the Falcon 9 rocket passing these events following liftoff. At T plus 1 minute and 6 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through Max Q. Then there will be a couple of different events in rapid succession. First will be at T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds, where first stage main engine cutoff will occur, that is MECO, followed by a major milestone just within 3 seconds at T plus 2 minutes and 29 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. Just after 7 seconds later, second stage MVAC engine will ignite for the first time during today's flight, that is SES-1 at T plus 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Coming up next at T plus 3 minutes and 19 seconds mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned, exposing the payload to the vacuum of space. Now here is a short video of the payload fairing separation and MVAC ignition. You can see how the fairing halves separate, exposing the payload on board, the second stage to space, and the MVAC engine ignition. Sooner we will be showing the new 2 clips which SpaceX released for the fairing halves on our stream. But as of now, we are having this stream, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Now coming back to the timeline, at T plus 6 minutes and 14 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 22 seconds up to 6 minutes and 36 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for the Falcon 9's first stage. Next major milestone at T plus 7 minutes and 52 seconds. The first stage landing burn will commence, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. At T plus 8 minutes and 14 seconds, the first stage will land on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. This will be the 106th landing on this particular drone ship to date, marking SpaceX's 358th overall landing. The second stage MVAC engine will shut down, that is SECO 1, and enter into a parking orbit at T plus 8 minutes and 38 seconds. At T plus 54 minutes and 41 seconds, the second stage MVAC engine will reignite for a quick 4 seconds burn, that is SES 2, and turning it off at T plus 54 minutes and 45 seconds, that is SECO 2. Precise timing for satellite deployment are not being shared publicly due to the classified nature of the NRO's launch. Now just a reminder, as this is a NRO's launch, we will not be getting views of the payload or the second stage, and the webcast will be ending just after the first stage landing. We are 7 minutes away from the webcast to begin, so meanwhile let's just quickly go through the stats for today's mission. Today's launch marks the 396th SpaceX overall launch and the 4th dedicated launch of NRO's Starshield-based proliferated architecture for this year. This launch marks the 383rd Falcon 9 launch to date, the 21st flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission with tail number 1063. Today's launch marks the 100th Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far. Although this 100th launch of Falcon 9 launch is a little bit, we are getting confused as well, because SpaceX already did mention that they had the 100th Falcon 9 launch. But if we will be going through their website, even on other sources which are there in the internet, it is quite like mind baffling. I don't know why SpaceX mentioned this, but the count is right now, excluding this NROL upcoming launch, is 99th. So we are a little bit confused because SpaceX claiming that 100 Falcon 9 launch of 2024 has already been done. Well, moving on, then we have this SpaceX 105th overall launch of this year, including the 3 Starship test flights and 2 Falcon Heavy launches. We are expecting the next 6th integrated flight test probably early November. This is SpaceX's 330th Falcon booster reflight to date, meaning the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. This will be the 95th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 162nd overall orbital launch from this pad. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 315th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 106th landing on Of Course I Still Love You drone ship to date. 21st landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1063. With this mission's first stage landing, which brings the milestone of 281st overall drone ship landing, marking the 339th Falcon 9 landing and the 358th SpaceX's overall landing to date. On your screen, here are some of the stats for the drone ship landing prior to today's mission. Well, yes, Popter Pika, the 400th launch will be happening sooner. And really that is strange that why SpaceX mentioned it is the 100th launch with the Starlink 6-61 yesterday. Although the manually if you'll be counting, it seems it's 99th. And it's true that no one else will be noticing a Falcon 9 being launching or any SpaceX launch. It's not possible. So let's see what happens in this ambiguity in the future, with this ambiguity in the future. Now let's have a look into some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's NROL-167 mission. With today's mission launch, SpaceX will have a total of 105 launches this year, and out of those, 68 are Starlink missions, 34 non-Starlink missions, including one from today for commercial and government organization, and 3 Starship launches. One of the previous non-Starlink missions, the Europa Clipper mission, was supported by the 11th Falcon Heavy launch to date and the second for this year. SpaceX reused booster for 98 times in these mission launches, including today's one, showing their commitment to sustainability and reusability. Now, if we look into the geographical distribution, we get they have 67 launches from East Coast in Florida, with 18 from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center and 49 launches from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, they have 35 launches, including today's one, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East here at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. And there were 3 launches from Gulf Coast at Starbase back in Texas for Starship 3rd, 4th, and 5th integrated flight test. As for landings, they will be nailing it today 99 times this year. Most of the landings are on drone ship with 78 successful landings. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 21 of them, 13 on landing zone 1, 2 times on landing zone 2, and 6 times on landing zone 4. We are just 1 minute away from the webcast to begin. Prior to today's launch, the success rate for ground landings is 98.72%, and for drone ship landing it is 96.22%. And the overall landing success rate is 96.75%. Today's mission is the 31st consecutive successful Falcon 9 launch since last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission. Now it's time for the webcast to begin, so let's move on to the webcast page. Once again, just to remind you, As per NRO's request, we will not be getting any views of the payload or the second stage, and the webcast will be ending just after the first stage landing. Now we finally have a request for you. Guys, adding value to your viewing experience is our top priority. So if you feel we achieved that, please consider liking this video. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bring in more space fans and helps others to find out this stream. Also consider subscribing to our channel as we work hard to bring you streams packed with stats, details, and insights. We would be incredibly grateful for your support. Now we are just waiting for the webcast to begin. Replying to Pop Tripika on the chat. Well, I'm not sure about that, Pop Tripika. But it's quite clear that they will be having a stratified test sooner. So the webcast has begun, guys. Hopefully you will be enjoying the stream. So now sit back and enjoy the stream.
Good morning and welcome to the NROL-167 mission launch webcast. The Falcon 9 rocket carrying today's payload is currently awaiting liftoff from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California in just under 9 minutes from now. Hello everyone, my name is Jesse Anderson and I'm a Senior Structures Engineering Manager here at SpaceX. Today's mission carries a national security payload designed, built, and operated by the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. Today's mission will be SpaceX's 396th overall launch, the 101st launch of 2024, and the 8th NRO launch on a Falcon 9 rocket. This mission continues the NRO's cutting-edge capability of building and developing the U.S. government's largest satellite constellation in history to deliver critical information that can only be obtained from the vantage point of space. It's a beautiful, clear day at Vandenberg Space Force Base, which you can see there on your screen. Temperatures of about 76 degrees Fahrenheit or 24.5 degrees Celsius on the ground. Looking great for today's liftoff. Both the range and vehicle are currently green, and we are on track for an on-time liftoff at 10:13 a.m. Pacific time. It's also worth noting that we will not be showing any Stage 2 or payload deployment views at the request of the customer. So for now, let's meet the vehicle and learn a little bit more about the most flown U.S. launch vehicle ever, our Falcon 9 rocket. Falcon 9 is a two-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX, known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. It is also the first and currently the only orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. Starting at the top of the vehicle is the payload fairing, which is a protective shell that encases the payload or satellite being sent to space. The fairings are made of carbon composite material and have a 17-foot diameter, which creates the space to accommodate an average-sized fire truck. The fairing, made up of two halves, will separate and jettison away from the vehicle, exposing the payload once Falcon 9 reaches space. Now continuing down the vehicle, we have the second stage. The second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or what we call the MVAC engine, and this is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. After stage separation, the MVAC engine will ignite and carry the payload to its final orbit. The second stage is connected to Falcon 9's first stage by the black composite inner stage, which houses the MVAC engine and the system that decouples the two.
RP1 load is complete.
Some good call-outs there. That is the system that decouples the two stages during stage separation. Now below that is the first stage, which is powered by 9 Merlin engines. These 9 Merlin engines provide the initial thrust to lift Falcon 9 off the ground through the lower, thicker parts of the atmosphere. There are 8 engines arranged around one center engine and collectively held in place by a structure called the octaweb. Each of these Merlin 1D engines delivers about 190,000 pounds of thrust at sea level, which gives Falcon 9 a combined 1.7 million pounds of thrust. After stage separation, stage 1, which we also call the booster, will return back to Earth for recovery and reuse on a future mission, which using a combination of Merlin sea level engines and the 4 titanium grid fins located near the top of the booster, which will guide the vehicle during its re-entry and landing. The Falcon 9 first stage is also equipped with 4 landing legs that deploy just before landing and allow for vertical touchdown on a drone ship or landing pad. For today's mission, we'll be attempting to land this booster on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, which is currently stationed in the Pacific Ocean, which you can see there on your screen. Both the weather and the vehicle...
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for Stromback retract.
Again, some good callouts there. Both the weather and the vehicle continue to look good for today's launch out of Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. And as you heard that call out, we are preparing for Stromback retract. That is also known as the transport erector, TE. The transport
retract has started.
Good call out there. The TE is now going to begin to retract away from the vehicle. That's that large trusted structure, which you can see there on your screen to the right of Falcon 9 or just behind Falcon 9. You can see the clamp arms just below the fairing are opening up. Once those are fully opened, then that TE can begin to recline away from the vehicle. And you can see that the clamp arms are fully open and that TE is starting to move away. It's very slow and slight, but it's just enough to help clear the way for Falcon 9 as it lifts off. Now the first stage is connected to a launch mount at the base of the TE, but the TE is hinged and will retract away even further in preparation for launch at T0. The TE is designed to transport, raise, and support Falcon 9 at the launch pad, and it's also equipped with umbilicals or flexible lines that are used to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from the ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 switches to internal power and clears the pad. And you can see on your screen that umbilical connecting from the TE to the vehicle. At liftoff, that will disconnect.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And good call out there. Stage 1 LOX load is now complete. Stage 2 LOX load will complete at the T-2 minute mark. And again, we are still loading liquid oxygen on the second stage, but once that concludes at the T-2 minute mark, that will conclude propellant loading for Falcon 9. And just under 20 seconds away from liquid oxygen loading completion on stage 2. Once that concludes, we will begin to vent out those propellant lines. And you may see a few more white clouds coming when that happens. Just waiting for that call out for liquid oxygen loading on second stage to be completed.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out that we were waiting for. Now that liquid oxygen loading is complete on the second stage, again, this concludes propellant loading on Falcon 9. And you can hear and see that those white clouds on your screen coming from the TE. That is us venting out the propellant lines. That really cold liquid oxygen gas coming in contact with the warmer ambient air is what's causing that condensation that you see there on your screen.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Great call out. Falcon 9 is in startup. The internal flight computers have now taken control over the countdown. Just waiting for the final go from the launch director.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
And great news, we are go for launch. Let's listen and watch as Falcon 9 takes the NRO payload into space.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 15. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and launch. Go Falcon, go SpaceX. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
T plus 35 seconds into launch, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
Nominal power and telemetry.
Good calls on ascent. Coming up next, the vehicle will be passing through max Q in a few seconds here. This is the point of...
Vehicle is supersonic.
This is the point where the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
And great call out there. And now the vehicle has passed through that highest amount of structural load on the vehicle. Now coming up next, we will have a few events happening very quickly in succession. That'll be MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. MECO is main engine cutoff, and that's where all 9 of those Merlin 1D engines that you see burning bright on the screen. Those 9 engines will shut down. That helps slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage and second stage separate, and the first stage will continue to make its way back down to Earth as the second stage continues with the payload to take it to its targeted drop-off orbit. And we are coming up on MECO stage separation and SES-1. SES-1 is second stage engine startup 1. That's where we'll light that MVAC engine on the second stage. And as a reminder, we will not have any views of stage 2 or the payload at the request of our customer.
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
Beautiful views. We had MECO, stage separation, as well as the ignition of the second stage engine. And now that first stage vehicle is making its way back down to Earth, and a great view there with the grid fins deploying. And you can see that the telemetry of stage 1, it has not yet reached its apogee, but once it does, it will begin to make its way back down to Earth
Fairing separation confirmed.
for landing. And good call out there that we had confirmation of fairing separation. We will be attempting to retrieve the fairing halves today once they fall back down to Earth with our recovery vessel Go Beyond in the Pacific Ocean. Today's fairings are flying for their 16th and 7th times today. And these views are so great. You're looking at a view from the first stage vehicle, and relative to Earth, it looks very slow and calm, but the vehicle is moving very quickly. You can see the speed in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen there. And you can see that the altitude has stopped increasing. We've just about reached apogee, and now the vehicle should begin to make its way back down to Earth. Again, attempting our landing today on, of course, I Still Love You, our drone ship in the Pacific Ocean. Now we're just about a minute away from the next event for the first stage. That will be the entry burn. The entry burn is where we will reignite 3 of those Merlin M1D engines. This helps slow the vehicle down as it's re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And that burn should last about 20 seconds long for this mission today. And some cool views here. This is from the first stage looking forward towards the top of the vehicle. And this is inside of the inner stage section of Falcon 9. Just under 30 seconds away from that entry burn. Such great views here today. Again, we are coming up on the entry burn for the first stage vehicle. You can see the altitude decreasing, and we'll reignite those engines to help slow the vehicle down even more.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And good call out there, and you can visually see that the engines have ignited. Again, this burn will last about 20 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And good call out there, as well as visually seeing that the engines have shut down. That concludes the entry burn for this first stage's journey back to Earth. The next event will be in just under a minute from now.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
In just under a minute from now, we will ignite the center engine on the vehicle for the landing burn. The landing burn will last about 15 seconds long, and that helps slow the vehicle just in time to touch down again on a drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, currently in the Pacific Ocean. And we do only use one single engine for that landing
Stage
burn.
1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Each of these engines has 190,000 pounds of thrust, again, just enough to slow down the vehicle. We are currently using the drag from the atmosphere to help slow down the vehicle, and you can see the speed dropping, again, the bottom left hand of your screen, that it's drastically dropping as we're getting closer and closer to Earth on the first stage.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
We have that call out. Landing burn has begun. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down, and of course, I Still Love You.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And great views there. Falcon 9 has touched down on Of Course I Still Love You. This was the 21st launch and landing for this booster. This landing marks SpaceX's 358th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including the first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Today's mission marks SpaceX's 396th overall mission to date and 101st mission of 2024. Now, as a reminder, we will not be showing any Stage 2 or deployment views at the request of our customer. So with that landing of the Falcon 9 booster, we'll be bringing today's webcast to a close. Thank you to the National Reconnaissance Office for entrusting us with today's mission. If you're interested in more launch coverage, be sure to check spacex.com/launches and follow @SpaceX on X for the most up-to-date information. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.
Hello guys, it's me Dipto from AstroYonder's team. So with that successful landing of the Falcon 9, we will be wrapping up the stream for now. Tomorrow we have the upcoming stream for the Crew 8 splashdown. The stream is already available on our channel, so be sure to tune in. Today's launch marks SpaceX's 396th successful mission, with the landing marking their 358th success. We hope you enjoyed the stream. We appreciate everyone joining us for today's launch. Thanks for our moderators here, Pop Replica and Angry Bird, for tuning in and taking their time. Thanks for watching. This is AstroYonder Live and me Dipto signing off for now, and we will see you next time.